It's time to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Vicki, how are you doing on this day?
George, I'm not sure exactly how I'm doing
Okay.
on this day.
All right, come
Okay.
on with it. Come on with it.
We'll,
What you mean you're
we'll,
not sure? What you
well,
mean?
we're gonna have to. I've gotten a lot of feedback and some calls concerning two of the segments that we had, and I'm sort of feeling like maybe I need to go back and clean up a couple of things, or at least encourage some people, because based on the information that we discussed, there's a lot of discouragement out there. So let me go back and work through
Oh,
this.
you gotta clean up some things. What you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so if you recall, a couple of weeks ago,
I recall.
we had a segment on where we talked about the fact that it had been reported that the amount of money that you needed for retirement was just short of $1.5 million. In fact, $1.46 million. So
Mm-hmm.
we just called it 1.5 as far as the amount of money
Right.
that you needed to successfully retire. And that the average, remember this, because I took you through the steps.
Yes.
The average amount of savings that was out there was actually how much?
88,000.
$88,000. So the gulf, that wasn't even a gap. That was like a chasm, like the Grand Canyon difference between what the average account balance was and what was going to be needed for retirement. Following that segment, we talked about the fact that the Social Security system was scheduled to be out of money by the time we hit 2037.
Okay, by the
Yeah,
way, can I just pause you right there?
yeah.
So I called my because you asked what
Asked you to
asked us to
call.
call. Just want to pause you
Yes.
right there before you continue. And I
Okay.
did not hear from Congressman Brandon Williams' office.
Oh,
So
really?
so okay, constituent service, what's the deal? You've been called out.
Good, good, good. Okay, because I asked everybody to start calling to find out what from constituent services or directly from the congressman, exactly what his plan was for stabilizing and sustaining Social Security.
Yes.
And since that point, I have seen countless numbers of stories, either online and actually in the newscast. And we even had a couple of our listeners and viewers send us messages saying that they see this story trending higher and higher in the news service. But here's where I think I need to do a little cleanup. Understanding how to reach that $1.5 million may be easier than you think, because what it represents is the amount of cash that you need to have set aside to create cash flow necessary in order to sustain your retirement. And that's where I'm going to go back here, George. So let's go through some steps here. What that's really saying is that based on, and we've said this some years back, based on the typical distribution rate, how much money you can take from a bag of cash and sustain it throughout your lifetime, there is a factor that we have been using for as long as I have been in this industry of 4 to 4.5% per dollar or per thousand in order to create cash flow. So basically what we're saying is that if you had $1 million in the bank, for every $1 million in the bank, you can pretty much count on $45,000 in distribution, either dividends or interest, to be paid out from that account, and have enough momentum within the market to replenish it so that you will never run out of money. Because what you want to make sure of is that you do not run out of money before you run out of time, because that's really the formula.
Right.
Don't run out of money before you run out of time. And a 4 to 4.5% distribution rate has been proven mathematically and through back testing of all market returns to be the sweet spot in that area. So if you were looking at $1 million, giving you $40 to $45,000, the next $500,000, that 1.5 would give you a little over 20,000 there. And so that means you basically have about $60,000 to $65,000 a year that was being generated from that bag of cash. For most people, that's going to be a sufficient starting point as far as what they need to cover their expenses. But what we also did not talk about, and these were two what I call dovetailed conversation, is that on top of that, your Social Security payment, and the average is about $1,700 a month. So if you add another $1,700 a month, close to $19,000 a year, then you really had the whole pie of what's necessary in order to sustain the average individual throughout retirement. So what's most important? Yes, the number as far as the 1.5 million is important, but what's most important is to understand what kind of cash flow that number or any other number will create throughout your lifetime to sustain your retirement. Does that make more sense, George?
It makes more sense, but I can't help but say, if so, you basically jumped to the point. But if that person only has the $88,000, going back to that, that's still a gap.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Now, yes. Okay.
Talk to me.
All right. Now, if that person only has the 88 and that person fills in that average Social Security number, which is again about $1,700 a month, there's a gap. Okay? Yeah. There's a gap on the average.
Right.
So what do you do? How do you address this? This has always been predicated upon the fact of understanding what your expenses are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I made that assumption that you understood what your expenses were.
Right.
So what you would have to do is look at it this way. I've got $88,000. Multiply that $88,000 times 4.5% and see what that is going to generate on an annual income.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then add to that the $1,767 per month.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Okay, and that will tell you exactly what your expense level is going to be,
Right.
or what you have to cover expenses.
So I got my calculator out for those who. This is not for the $1 million people. This is for the $88,000 people.
For the 88,000 people, okay.
Because you did the calculation. So you said 4.5%.
Mm-hmm. Times 88,000.
All right, so that's going to be $3,960.
Correct. Divided by 12 is what?
Divided by
12.
That's $330 a month.
$330 a month plus $1,767.
Around $2,030.
Okay, let's just call it $24,000 a year.
Right.
So look, okay, it's basically $24,000 a year.
That's what you're living on.
That's what you're living on. Can you live on that?
Right.
That's it. That's the question. Can I live on $24,000 a year?
That's the reality.
It's probably absolutely not.
Okay? Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. Okay, so what can we do to address that? Obviously, one of the first things is we want to increase the $88,000.
Yeah.
Second step, we need to decrease whatever our expense levels are to meet and match whatever the actual monthly income may be. Third, that $1,767 that I gave you is the average in 2023 because many people, far too many, actually retire and start their Social Security at 62.
Mm-hmm.
That is the average because of the fact that at 62, you have this reduced amount. So you might be the person who needs to think about waiting until you reach what's called maximum PIA. So here's the homework. Stop right here. Everybody, get out a pencil. Want you to go to socialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov. Get your most recent Social Security paperwork that shows exactly what your current payout would be at age 62, 67, and 70, if you happen to not be on Social Security already. Now, if you're already on Social Security, you know what the number is. But if at 62, 67, and 70, because most people who are not on Social Security yet probably have the, what they call the maximum or the PIA, personal insurance amount, at 67. It's no longer 65, because you remember some years ago it got pushed out, George. So there's some of us at 65, 66 and a half, but most people now are at 67. Find out what those numbers are. Look at what your current savings is. Look at what your current expenses are. And if those things are not dovetailing and crossing as far as matching, you've got work to do. And if you've got work to do, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to call me, area code 315-930-4499. Both myself and Michael Jennings would be happy to sit down with you to talk about some of the strategies that are necessary in order to make these three figures match up. But you've got to stop and look at this now, because with time moving forward, if you don't change the direction, it's going to be very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult to change the direction in the future. All right. Does that make more sense, George?
930-4499, 315-930-4499. Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And I love how you made that connection.
Okay, I think wonderful. Now, here's the next thing, though. I still want everybody to get and call their congressman, wherever you happen to be in the country listening to us, and ask that question. What is your detailed plan? I'd like to hear your detailed plan concerning stabilizing and sustaining. Make sure you say both. Stabilizing and sustaining Social Security. Please provide details. And if you don't get a call back, we might have to start blowing up some, social media feeds?
We might have to do that.
Start doing that because we need.
All right, so here's the assignment, folks. We want you specifically to call Brandon Williams' office, 315. I had the number somewhere, but you can look it up, and let us know what they say. So that's your assignment, okay?
What they said.
Exactly. What did they say?
All right, George, I think that's enough assignments for today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and say, if you have questions, feel free to give us a call at 315-930-4499 or at info@Brackens, Brackens, FSN.com. And be sure to share and subscribe and comment to this segment, because we need to hear from your voices throughout concerning all of the subjects that we have been discussing. And I'll say now, George, our plate is full.
Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial Member SIPC. She is America's money maven.